Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I'll update the House on my visit last week to China and Japan, where we delivered for the British people. Mr. Speaker, with events overseas directly impacting on our security and the cost of living, I made it a founding principle of this government that after years of isolationism, Britain would face outwards once again. This was an 18-month strategy to rebuild our standing, and we have delivered, strengthening our US relationship with our world-first trade deal, resetting our relationship with the EU, striking a groundbreaking FTA with India, and now thawing our ties with China to put this relationship on a more stable footing for the long term. Mr. Speaker, China is the second biggest economy in the world, including Hong Kong. It's our third biggest trading partner, supporting 370,000 British jobs, and it is an undeniable presence in global affairs. It would be impossible to safeguard our national interests without engaging with this geopolitical reality. Yet we inherited a policy from the previous government, not of engagement with China, but hiding away and sticking their heads in the sand. While our allies developed a more sophisticated approach, they let the UK fall behind. We became an outlier. Of my three predecessors, none held a single meeting with President Xi. For 8 years, no British Prime Minister visited China. 8 years of missed opportunities. Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, over that period, President Macron visited China 3 times, German leaders 4 times, the Canadian Prime Minister was there a few weeks ago, Chancellor Merz and President Trump are both due to visit shortly. In this context, refusing to engage would be a derelict.
Order! Mr. Klugendart, you will be withdrawing that remark. You will withdraw it. Thank you. Can we calm it down, because I'm sure you'll be wanting to catch my eye. And I would like to hear what you're going to say, so let's not ruin the opportunity. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in this context, refusing to engage would be a dereliction of duty, leaving British interests on the sideline. And incredibly, some in this House still advocate that approach. But, Mr. Speaker, leaders do not hide. Instead, we engage. And we do so on our own terms, because, like our allies, we understand that engagement makes us stronger. Mr. Speaker, protecting our national security is non-negotiable. We're clear-eyed about the threats coming from China in that regard, and we will never waver in our efforts to keep the British people safe. That is why we've given our security services the updated powers and tools that they need to tackle foreign espionage activity wherever they find it, and tackle malicious cyber activity as well. But the fact is, Mr. Speaker, we can do 2 things at once. We can protect ourselves whilst also finding ways to cooperate. And it was in that spirit that we made this visit. I had extensive discussions over many hours with President Xi, Premier Li and other senior leaders. The discussions were positive and constructive. We covered the full range of issues, from strategic stability to trade and investment, opening a direct channel of communication to deliver in the national interest, enabling us to raise frank concerns about activities that impact our national security at the most senior levels of the Chinese system. We agreed to intensify dialogue on cyber issues, and we agreed a new partnership on climate and nature, providing much-needed global leadership on this vital issue. And, Mr. Speaker, I raised a number of areas of difference which matter deeply to this country. I raised the case of Jimmy Lai and called for his release, making clear the strength of feeling in this House. Those discussions will continue. And my right honourable friend, the Foreign Secretary, is in touch with Mr Lai's family to provide further briefing. I raised our human rights concerns in Xinjiang and Tibet. We discussed Taiwan, wider regional stability, Iran and the Middle East. I called on China to end economic support for Russia's war effort, including companies providing dual-use technologies. And I urged them to use their influence on Putin to push for the much-needed ceasefire in Ukraine. And, Mr. Speaker, I also raised the fact that members of this House have been sanctioned by the Chinese authorities. In response, the Chinese have now made it clear that all such restrictions on parliamentarians no longer apply. And I want to be clear, this was not the result of a trade.
Exactly.
Yes, members will want to see more, I understand that. But that is precisely the point. Ignoring China for 8 years achieved nothing. This step is an early indication, not the sum total, of the kind of progress that this sort of engagement can achieve, through leader-to-leader discussion on sensitive issues, to stand up for British interests. Mr. Speaker, my visit was also about creating new opportunities for British businesses to deliver jobs and growth for the British people. We took with us a brilliant delegation of nearly 60 businesses and cultural powerhouses, the very best of British, as an embodiment of what this country has to offer. If anyone's in doubt as to why this matters, I urge them to spend a few minutes with any one of those businesses. They will tell you about the incredible potential there and the importance of getting out there and accessing the market. And we made significant progress, paving the way to open the Chinese market for British exports, including our world-leading services sector. We secured a 30-day visa-free travel for all Brits, including business travellers. We secured China's agreement to halve whisky tariffs from 10% to 5%. This is worth £250 million to the UK over the next 5 years. A significant win for our iconic whisky industry, particularly in Scotland. And, Mr. Speaker, that lower tariff comes into force today. In total, we secured £2.3 billion in market access wins, including for financial services, £2.2 billion in export deals for British companies, and hundreds of millions worth of new investments. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we agreed to work together in some key areas of law enforcement. Last year, around 60% of all small boat engines used by smuggling gangs came from China. So we struck a border security pact to enable joint law enforcement action to disrupt that supply at source. We also agreed to scale up removals of those with no right to be in the United Kingdom and to work together to crack down on the supply of synthetic opioids. We will continue to develop our work across all these areas because, Mr. Speaker, this is the start of the process, not the end of it. My visit was not just about coming back with these agreements. It was about the wider question of setting this relationship on a better path, which allows us to deal with issues and seize opportunities in a way that the previous government failed to do. Finally, Mr. Speaker, let me say a word about my meetings in Tokyo. Japan remains one of our closest allies. Together, we're the leading economies in the CPTPP, partners in the G7, the G20, and the Coalition of the Willing. And they are the UK's largest inward investor outside the United States and Europe. So I had an extremely productive meeting with the Prime Minister as we set out our shared priorities to build an even deeper partnership in the years to come. That includes working together for peace and security, supporting Ukraine as we work for a just and lasting peace, and deepening our cooperation in cutting-edge defence production, including through GCAP. We discussed how we can boost growth and economic resilience by developing our cooperation, first in tech and innovation, where we are both leaders, second in energy, where Japan is a major investor in the UK, and third in trade, where we're working together to maintain the openness and stability that our businesses depend on. That includes expanding the CPTPP and deepening its cooperation with the EU. We will take all of this forward, Mr. Speaker, when I welcome the Prime Minister to Chequers later this year. So, Mr. Speaker, this is Britain back at the top table at last, facing outward, replacing incoherence and isolationism with pragmatic engagement, replacing naive posturing with the national interest. In dangerous times, we're using our full strength and reach on the world stage to deliver growth and security for the British people, and I commend this statement to the House.
Kemi Badenoch, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Prime Minister for advance sight of his statement, but it is utterly reprehensible that he began it by accusing the previous government of isolationism. The same Conservative government, the Business Secretary is laughing, just that, we'll tell him, the same Conservative government that led the world in our response to the invasion of Ukraine, that signed a vital strategic alliance in AUKUS. The Business Secretary is asking how many FTAs. We signed Britain's biggest post-Brexit trade deal, the CPTPP, bringing us closer to the 11 Indo-Pacific nations, including Japan. He asks, I know about that deal because I signed it myself. And so I welcome the Prime Minister's efforts to collaborate more with our long-standing ally, Japan. But let's turn to China. Of course Britain should engage with China, even though the Chancellor wasn't allowed to go, even though they are an authoritarian state who seek to undermine our interests, even though they spy on us, sometimes within the walls of this building, even though they fund regimes around the world hostile to our country, they are a fact of life, a global power, and an economic reality. So let me be clear. It is not the Prime Minister engaging with China that we take issue with. What we are criticising is his supine and short-termist approach. I'm sure the Prime Minister means well, but his negotiating tactic has always been to give everything away in the hope that people will be nice to him in return. Before the Prime Minister even got on the plane, he'd already shown that he would do anything to demonstrate his good relationship with China. But China uses every interaction to improve its own position. The Prime Minister looked like he enjoyed his trip. In fact, it looked like a dream come true for a man who was virtually a communist most of his life. But apart from the... Mr. Speaker, apart from the Labubu doll in his suitcase, and I hope he's checked it for bugs, he has come back with next to nothing. We all want cheaper tariffs for Scottish whisky, but if the Prime Minister bothered to speak to the whisky industry like I did 2 weeks ago, he would know that what they really need is cheaper energy and lower taxes. What else did he get? Visa-free travel. China already offers this to other countries. It's not big enough for a prime ministerial visit. But the worst thing, Mr. Speaker, the worst thing was the Prime Minister claiming a glorious triumph with the lifting of sanctions on 4 Conservative MPs, as if he'd done us a favour. Let me tell him, those MPs were sanctioned because they stood up to China. They stood up against human rights abuses. They stood up against the country spying on our MPs in a way that he wouldn't dare. Those people don't want to go to China. The Chinese know that. They know that they are giving him something that costs absolutely nothing. Why can't the British Prime Minister see that? And I say to you, Mr. Speaker, and the whole House, like with the Chagos Islands, the Prime Minister has been played. China is about to build an enormous spy hub in the centre of London, a ransom he had to pay before he could even get on the plane. I would never allow Britain to be held over a barrel like that. Yet again, the Prime Minister has negotiated our country into a weaker position in the world. His entire economic policy is to tax business more, regulate them harder, and make energy so expensive that we deindustrialize. And then we can import Chinese wind turbines, Chinese solar panels, Chinese batteries for electric vehicles, all manufactured in a country that is building a coal-fired power station every other week. Did he speak to them about that? What did his trip achieve for Jimmy Lai? Nothing. Did China promise to stop fueling Putin's war machine in Ukraine? Doesn't sound like it. What did this trip achieve for the Uyghurs who are being enslaved? Absolutely nothing. Have China agreed to stop their relentless cyber attacks? Have they? We all know the answer to that. The reality is that China showed its strength and Britain was pushed around, literally. It is no wonder, Mr. Speaker, that President Xi praised the Labour Party because the Conservatives stood up for Britain. We don't get pushed around. Britain is a great trading nation. Of course we should engage with other countries, even hostile ones.
Order. Mr. Kyle, you said to me when you go into China how well you will behave, how you all be a big thank you. You're not showing it today. Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not worried about the business secretary. The entire business community thinks he's a joke and doesn't know what he's talking about. So, as I was saying, of course we should engage with other countries, even hostile ones, but we need to do so with our eyes open and from a position of strength. And that requires a Prime Minister and a government that puts our national interest first.
Mr. Speaker, let me see if I understand her position. This is the Leader of the Opposition who said we should empty chair the most important NATO summit for years, who wouldn't turn up to the G7, who would rip up our valuable trade deals with the US, India and the EU. This is the Leader of the Opposition who characterised Greenland as a second-order issue, then undermined the government's position on sovereignty. And when it comes to China, her policy is to stick her head in the sand, unable to influence anything. In a volatile world, that is not policy, that's an abdication of responsibility. No wonder her front bench are leaving in droves. And Mr. Speaker, she talks of the embassy. China's had an embassy in the UK since 1877. It's currently spread across 7 sites. The Leader of the Opposition is so busy trying to hold her party together, she's clearly not read the letter the Security and Intelligence Services. But, Mr. Speaker, she claims great interest in the China embassy. She was offered an invite for a Privy Council briefing on the issue. What did she do? She chose not to attend. Mr. Speaker, that's a dereliction of duty. Even worse, what did she do? She sent in her place the member for Croydon South, the Shadow Home Secretary. That is a double dereliction of duty. Instead of taking up a Privy Council briefing, she took up a megaphone on the streets outside the embassy. I changed my party from a party of protest to a party of power. She's rapidly going in the opposite direction. And her reply this afternoon seems to be that we should engage with China, but not engage with China. That what we should do, instead of leader-to-leader discussions where we raise all the opportunities and the difficult issues, each and every one of them, instead of those leader-to-leader meetings, she'll get a bag of sand and put her head in it and influence absolutely nothing. They're so unserious about world affairs.
Chair of the 41st Select Committee, Dame Emily Thornbury.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Prime Minister for his statement, and I'm pleased to see that his trip went so well. This morning, I was in touch with the Scotch Whisky Association, who want me to convey their congratulations to the Prime Minister for securing reduced tariffs with China. But there is, of course, more work needed. A Prime Minister's job is never done. The biggest overseas market for whisky is, of course, the US, where the tariff is still too high. So can the Prime Minister confirm that this will not be the end of the support that he will give to the Scotch whisky industry and will continue to be an advocate for them?
Yes, I can confirm that. We're continuing to work with the US and, of course, the India deal that we secured will have an impact on tariff for whisky as well.
Okay. Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with your indulgence, can I start by paying tribute to my friend Jim Wallace, one of the great Scottish Liberals, and offer our thoughts and prayers to his family and many friends. Jim devoted his life to public service, his Christian faith, and the cause of liberalism. But, Mr. Speaker, his judgment wasn't always impeccable, for it was Jim who gave me my first job in politics.
As opposed to your last.
We will miss him. Turning to the statement, can I thank the Prime Minister for advance sight of it? I listened to the Conservative leader, whose position now seems to be to oppose trade with the world's biggest economies. So much for global Britain. But with, Mr. Speaker, with President Trump threatening tariffs again, just because of the Prime Minister's trip, with Vladimir Putin still murdering civilians in Ukraine, now more than ever, the United Kingdom must forge much closer alliances with nations who share our values, our belief in free trade, and our commitment to our mutual defence. But China is none of those. The Prime Minister's main focus should be on the closest possible ties with our European neighbours, our Commonwealth allies, and our friends like Japan and Korea. So once again, he has made the wrong choice. However, unlike the Conservative Party, we think he was right to go and engage. But just like with President Trump, he approached President Xi from a position of weakness instead of a position of strength, promising him a super embassy here in London in return for relatively meagre offers from China. He rightly raised the case of Jimmy Lai, whose children fear for his health after 5 years held in captivity. So will the Prime Minister tell us what Xi said to give him confidence that Mr. Lai is now more likely to be released? Did he also challenge Xi over the bounties on the heads of innocent Hong Kongers here in the United Kingdom? Or the revelations that China hacked the phones of number 10 officials for years? In other words, did he stand up for Britain this time? And yet again, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister had to spend time on a foreign trip responding to revelations about the vile paedophile and sex trafficker Jimmy Epstein and his relationship with Lord Mandelson. The Prime Minister has rightly said that Mandelson should resign from the other place. But since he hasn't, will he back a simple piece of legislation to strip him of his peerage? Surely this House could pass it tomorrow.
Prime Minister.
Can I start by offering my deep condolences on behalf of the government in relation to Lord Wallace? He was a kind and decent man, and I know he'll be sorely missed on the Liberal Democrat benches, and may he rest in peace. In relation to the approach to China, of course we need to build stronger alliances with our key partners, and that's what we have been doing, particularly with the EU. But he's wrong. It's not a choice between doing that and engaging with China. One can do both, and that is what we're doing. And I think it's more important where there are opportunities and sensitive and really important disagreements to have a meeting to discuss them. Because the House is violently agreeing that there are issues that need to be discussed. The difference between us is we think that having a leader-to-leader meeting to discuss those issues is better than sticking your head in the sand if you really want to influence things. So we can do both. In relation to the points he raised, yes, I did raise the case of Jimmy Lai, and we've now spoken to his family about that discussion. Yes, I did raise the case of Hong Kong. I raised a number of human rights issues, as I listed. The point was, by being in the room, having the debate one-to-one with the leader at leader level, it was possible to raise those issues. There is, frankly, no point standing in this House shouting and screaming about issues if you're not prepared to get in the room to discuss them. It gets you absolutely nowhere.
Chair of the Business Committee, Liam Byrne.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to welcome the Prime Minister's serious engagement with serious power. It is essential to safeguarding our national interest. Mr. Speaker, the complexities of China require from Britain a whole-of-society approach, which is completely impossible until the government publishes a clear China strategy to explain what is off limits and how we're going to rebalance competition with Chinese industry that is 6 times over-subsidised compared to our firms. Now, last week in Europe, I heard very clearly from our partners that they are worried that the lackadaisical approach to policing Chinese competition risks deeper integration with Europe. The EU has 143 trade measures in place against Europe. We have none. So will the Prime Minister now follow through his meetings last week and publish a strategy coordinated with our allies so we can take out the guesswork and put in place the guardrails for this important relationship?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for his question? Obviously, the general approach was set out in the Lady Mayor's banquet speech I gave just before Christmas. On the point he makes about Europe, this is a really important point. As I mentioned, President Macron went to China just a few weeks ago. Chancellor Merz is due to go very shortly, and he won't be surprised to learn that the three of us, as the E3, discussed in advance the approach we would take, and we'll discuss during the visits and afterwards the outcomes and how we go forward as a group of European nations.
Father of the House, Edward Lee.
What absolutely unites everybody in this place is absolute outrage at the treatment of Jimmy Lai, a British citizen whose only crime is to campaign for democracy and to ask the Chinese to obey the spirit and the letter of the agreement that we made with them solemnly before the 1997 takeover. Now, the Prime Minister, I saw the weekend, said he'd raised respectfully with the latest Chinese emperor the case of Jimmy Lai. Respectfully, doesn't the Prime Minister realise that the Chinese only accept strength, that everything is a deal? So why didn't he say to them, there'll be no Chinese embassy until you stop spying us in this House, that you give an absolute assurance to us on Diego Garcia, and above all, you free Jimmy Lai now?
Mr. Speaker, I raised the case of Jimmy Lai in terms with the President, as in fact I did, as he knows, at the G20 when I met the President for the first time, and we have updated the family in relation to the progress that we've made. But the position of the party opposite seems to be you should raise the case of Jimmy Lai by not going to China and raising the case of Jimmy Lai.
Defence Select Committee, Tan Singh Desi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We must engage pragmatically with our allies and with others around the world when it serves a national interest, and that is why I welcome the Prime Minister's engagement with both our close ally Japan as well as our major trading partner China. I also welcome my right honourable friend's commitment to the Global Combat Air Programme, which, as the Defence Committee illustrated, is of vital strategic importance as we develop the next generation of fighter jets. But our Japanese and Italian friends are understandably nervous because we have as yet not penned to paper the full contract as was planned last year for Tempest. So can the Prime Minister clarify when that fully formalised contract on GCAP will be penned, and can he also confirm that the timeline and programme will not be sliding sideways?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for raising this programme, which is a very important programme. He'll be pleased to know I did discuss it in my discussions with the Prime Minister in Japan, and we will be publishing our defence investment plan shortly.
Tom Tugunda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You have been stalwart in standing with those of us who were sanctioned by the People's Republic of China all those years ago, and you've been very clear that we stand as one in this House. Do you not find it as surprising as I do that the Prime Minister has come back with a deal that lifts the sanctions on those 6 of us who are still in this House, but not the one who isn't, nor the lawyers, advisers and academics who support the work of this House? Is this not a direct affront to the democracy of this place, an attempt to divide and conquer that we've seen China play against the European Parliament and, sadly, has tricked our government too?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for raising this point. I know how much it matters personally to him and to the others that he referenced. I did raise it directly, and that got the response that restrictions do not apply to parliamentarians. I accept the challenge that we need to go. I accept the challenge, the point that we need to go further. That doesn't mean that what we've achieved should be put to one side. I accept that we must go further, and I'll work with colleagues across the House in order to do so. But in order to go further, we have to engage, and we have to engage at the leader level.
Tony Vaughan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Prime Minister on his grown-up approach to UK engagement with China? And can I also congratulate him on the agreement for a crackdown on manufacturers of small boat engines and parts, which directly impacts my constituency. But given that the party opposite wouldn't even have gone to China, would you agree with me that the choice is between a Labour government doing the hard yards to shut down the smuggler supply chains and the Tory party who prefer posturing and permanent failure in the Channel?
Prime Minister.
Thank you for raising 60% of motors used across the Channel are coming from China, so of course it's right to engage appropriately in China on this issue and to get the agreement we got, Mr. Speaker, on information sharing and working to ensure that those engines can't make their way from China to the north coast of France.
Taylor.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to have another chance, another try at the question my right honourable friend asked in his original statement. Can the Prime Minister tell us what President Xi said about the case of Jimmy Lai and what gave him the confidence that we might see movement in the case soon? Can he also let us know what the response was on challenging the bounties put on the heads of dissidents that are here in the United Kingdom, and whether he challenged the transnational repressions that Hong Kongers across the country fear, and whether there's any prospect of them being able to walk the streets without worrying about interference from the Chinese state on our streets?
Prime Minister.
As I told the House, I raised the case of Jimmy Lai in terms. I won't go into the details of the discussion. Safe to say that we've subsequently spoken to Jimmy Lai's family about that. In relation to the wider issues he raises, including Hong Kong, yes, all of those issues were raised.
Samantha Nibble.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Prime Minister for his incredible leadership on an international scale, which has a direct benefit on us domestically, not least the disrupting of the supply chain for engines to small boats. I just wonder, because it's not a silver bullet to solve the challenge with immigration through illegal routes, whether the conversation came up about TikTok being used as a platform to share disinformation and misinformation to encourage people to make dangerous journeys.
Prime Minister.
We raised a number of issues in relation to smuggling, but the focus was very much on the small boat, on the engines for the small boats, because of the fact that 60% of them are coming from China. We need to stop that supply chain if we're going to deal with the crossings.
Sir Andrew Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In spite of the somewhat thin economic gruel with which he has returned, the Prime Minister was absolutely right to visit China. But if I may return to the issue of human rights, and in particular Jimmy Lai, did the Prime Minister say, as the whole House would have wished him to say, that this British citizen, nearly 80 years old, held in solitary confinement and denied the chance to practice his religion, should surely receive clemency and be returned to the United Kingdom, or did he merely deliver a written note?
Minister.
No, I didn't deliver a written note. I engaged seriously on the issue, as he would have expected me to, and went into the details of the case that I was making in the way he would have expected me to do so.
Rachel Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent, the journalist and democracy campaigner Jimmy Lai, was convicted under Hong Kong's draconian national security law. I've listened carefully to what my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, has said. We have heard that he has raised this issue on his visit. Jimmy Lai is desperately unwell now. His health is failing. I've heard what the Prime Minister has to say. I'm grateful that the Foreign Secretary will be speaking to Jimmy's family. Can the Prime Minister share with us his assessment of will we see Jimmy Lai free in 2026?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for all the work she does on behalf of her constituent? Yes, I did raise this and in detail and made it clear that we were calling for his release, plus other details of the situation in which his health and the situation is being held in. I believe it's the right thing to engage at the highest level on issues of such concern and to have that conversation. I believe that is a far better strategy than putting your head in the sand, which is the policy apparently of the party opposite.
Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, as you will be aware, when the Prime Minister was in China and Japan, he gave comment that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor should testify before Congress in the United States. What the Prime Minister chose not to do was to offer an unreserved apology to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for appointing his other friend, Peter Mandelson, as the ambassador to the United States of America. So now that he's back from China and Japan, will he take this opportunity to do just that? And does he agree with myself that Peter Mandelson should be subject to a police investigation for potential criminality whilst in public office?
Prime Minister, there is a statement.
Only SNP could go about this in the way. Instead of welcoming the halving of tariffs on Scottish whisky, he raises things that have got absolutely nothing to do with China or Japan. Only the SNP have got no interest at all in delivering for Scotland.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Prime Minister recall that during the time of Brexit negotiations that the Tories told us that we had more to gain outside of the EU than inside, and that within days of Brexit we would be signing trade deals with the US and China that would be bigger than the trade deals that existed with the EU.
Now we don't want that.
What we got was a botched Brexit and isolated from our European neighbours, and now they want to extend that isolation to a global scale. My honourable friend agree with me that Britain wouldn't be treated decently or with any confidence by our global neighbours or global friends if we'd adopted such an approach.
Well, can I thank him for raising this period in our history, because of course this is 2015-2016. The party opposite had a manifesto in 2015 which dealt with the question of a referendum in relation to Brexit. It also set out their position on China. Mr. Speaker, I had a look at it this morning, 2015, that very manifesto, to strengthen economic links with China, including seeking a free trade agreement. That used to be their position, then they veered to the other side of the road, and now they stick their head in the sand and pretend that they can influence events.
Willie Lewis.
Prime Minister's position seems to be that if a bully is big enough, rich enough and powerful enough, the pragmatic thing to do is to pay into his protection racket. Can he at least show some sign of moral compass by accepting the fact that China is a repressive, brutal, communist, totalitarian state which dishonoured all the provisions of the Hong Kong Agreement?
Prime Minister.
Their position seems to be that if one has concerns in relation to China, their position seems to be the pragmatic thing to do is to buy a bag of sand and put your head in it. I don't think that's going to influence anything. Nothing said here has any influence if you don't have a meeting.
To Rupert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to congratulate my right honourable friend on last week's handsome wins, including visas in China. I just wondered if the same issue arose in Japan. I did a brilliant visit to the Japan-London school in my seat the other day, but they are finding the dogmatic visa changes made by the Conservative government burdensome. So will you look into that? And also praise the contribution of the Japanese enacted from sushi to bilingual education.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we had very productive meetings in Japan. Amongst the discussions was how we open up to more trade between our two economies.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister said that this visit to China was good for British jobs. So, having wrongly granted consent to the super Chinese embassy, can he confirm that it will be built with brilliant British steel from Lincolnshire as opposed to Chinese steel?
It was this government that took the action on Scunthorpe to make sure we have British steel at Scunthorpe, one of the proudest things I've done.
John Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the Prime Minister's statement, facing into the world as it is. Mr. Speaker, Des Brown, Baron Brown of Ladyton, is retiring from the other place after decades of distinguished public service as a Labour MP for Kilmarnock, Defence Secretary, and his work on the prevention of the spread of nuclear weapons. China is a significant and growing nuclear power with over 600 warheads, and this week the US and Russia New START treaty comes to an end. Can the Prime Minister tell me if the UK is engaging with China at the highest levels to prevent the risk of nuclear weapons and combat nuclear proliferation?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I first start by paying tribute to the contribution that Lord Brown has made and to assure him that our discussions with China did include how we de-risk the situation in relation, the risk in relation to nuclear weapons.
Is it 3:30? Alicia Cairns.
Yeah. When John Major went to Beijing, he spoke clearly and said, "We will not forget Tiananmen Square." In contrast, the Prime Minister refused to say Jimmy Lai's name himself until he was wheels up. I have never said we should not engage with Beijing. I have said we should not give them a propaganda visit. And it is extraordinary to abdicate the responsibility of the Chinese Communist Party, whose actions we had to respond to, and therefore pause trade talks, as if they have done nothing wrong. Finally, the Prime Minister met with Kai Chi, the man responsible for running 2 spies who are undermining this Parliament. He excluded that from his statement. Why doesn't he tell us why he thought it was acceptable to meet with this man and what exactly he got out of it in the British interest?
This is so pathetic. Honestly. At the highest level and one-to-one, I raised each of the issues of difference between our 2 countries. Each and every one of them in the way the House would have expected. And that is what they're criticising. They seem genuinely to believe, Mr. Speaker, that these issues can be progressed or influenced by doing nothing about it. You have to be in the room to have a discussion. That's what we did.
Alex Selby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's right that the Prime Minister goes to China if he's acting in the best interests of all of those that are living here. Last year, the Joint Committee on Human Rights undertook an inquiry on transnational repression. In front of us, we had Chloe Chung, a young Hong Konger from Leeds who'd had a $1 million Hong Kong bounty put on her head. She told us about how she'd been intimidated and harassed. Did the Prime Minister speak up for all the Hong Kongers in the UK who had bounties on their heads, who have been intimidated, harassed, and ensure that people living in the United Kingdom are safe from the Chinese regime?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that's exactly why we raised the issues of human rights at numerous levels on the visit.
Monica Harwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I noticed that mention of Japan took the Prime Minister 1 minute and the last minute of a 10-minute speech on China and Japan. Japan is not only the largest inward investor into the UK, apart from the EU and US, but is a vital liberal democracy in the Indo-Pacific and a key security partner in maintaining regional stability in the face of growing Chinese assertiveness. Given the growing security risks and strategic instability across the region, can the Prime Minister assure the House that engagement with Beijing will not weaken the UK's alignment with Japan, one of our most important democratic partners?
Prime Minister.
Yes, I can assure her of that.
Jonathan Davies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In respect of the statement following the visit to China and Japan, I thank the Prime Minister for being in the room and challenging China on its appalling human rights record and also fighting for British jobs. But in respect of his visit to Japan, can I ask, did the issue of Toyota come up? Because Toyota is a significant employer in Derbyshire. It's worth over £5.5 billion to the local economy. And can we do more with Toyota because it's really good for jobs here?
Yes, we did discuss the car manufacturing that is going on at the moment, the potential for further work in that regard, along with other issues of trade broadening between our 2 countries.
Sir John Whittingdale.
The Prime Minister will be aware that some 80% of the sanctioned dual-use items that Russia needs for its drones and missiles that it is firing at civilians and children on a daily basis come from China. He says that he raised this. Did he get any assurance that China will stop supplying Russia?
No.
Well, you're right to draw attention to this, and that is precisely why I raised it again in terms. I won't go into the details of the discussion, but I did raise it for the very reasons that he sets out. And across this House, we're absolutely committed to a just and lasting peace in Ukraine, and this has been an issue of concern for some considerable period, which is why I raised it.
Amanda Martin.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the Prime Minister's recent engagement in Tokyo and the strengthening of our relations with Japan as a key economic and strategic partner. Can he explain how SMEs in Portsmouth, particularly in maritime and defence, such as Griffin Marine, alongside the creative industries, will benefit from deeper UK-Japan cooperation? Because, Mr. Speaker, having seen Archie Cole, my 18-year-old son, a professional wrestler, currently competing on Tokyo TV in Magic Monday, I know firsthand how international engagement can open doors for individuals and ports of local businesses alike.
Can I congratulate her son on his achievements? And in relation to SMEs and businesses, yes, we discussed how we can enhance our engagement and enhance growth and jobs right across all of our constituencies, including hers.
You take it. Mr. McVeigh.
Does the Prime Minister accept that in his rush to hoover up economic crumbs from President Xi due to his appalling handling of our economy, he is having to increase strategic dependence on Beijing? The public see the risks he's taking with UK security. Does he?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the first thing I'd say is they crash the economy, so lectures from them on the economy are not welcome. As I said in my statement, national security is at the heart of our approach to China, as it is to every issue that we take up. And it is quite possible to have a discussion about the opportunities available to our country whilst also safeguarding our national security. That's what we're doing in a grown-up, mature way.
Go to Snell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Further to the question from our right honourable friend from Birmingham, Hodge Hill and Solihull North, the anti-dumping measures that we impose on Chinese goods into this country protect hundreds of jobs in Stoke-on-Trent, whether that be in the ceramic, tableware manufacturing sector or the retreading tyres at the Michelin factory. Is the Prime Minister able to give a guarantee that as economic work with China continues, that these measures will not be junked? Because it's not an abstract measure, Mr. Speaker. It is protecting hundreds of jobs in a part of the country that most needs them.
I thank you for raising this issue, and I can give him that assurance. I know how much it matters, and that's the approach that we've taken.
Chris Law.
Mr. Speaker, over the past weeks, thousands of Chinese fishing boats have been tracked, creating up to a 300-mile-long blockage in the East China Sea off Japan, seen by many as a strategy for future blockade. Given the huge reliance on these routes for trade, this action would cause global economic shock, threaten thousands of jobs in Scotland and dramatically increase cost of living. So can the Prime Minister tell the House what explanation his Chinese counterparts gave for this behaviour and what subsequent discussions he had with the Japanese Prime Minister about maintaining maritime security in the region?
Well, this issue was raised both in China and in Japan because it is obviously a cause of concern, and regional instability matters not just in the region but globally as well, and therefore I did discuss it both in China and in Japan.
Janet Davey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Prime Minister for his statement, but can you tell the House what steps the government is taking to protect parliamentarians and others in public life from foreign